Have you ever wondered why your life keeps following the same patterns? Why certain emotions overpower you without warning? Why you repeat choices you promised yourself you'd never make again? Why you feel drawn toward people who hurt you? Why your anger erupts without reason? Or why fear controls you even when you want to move forward? What if I told you that the force driving these patterns isn't fate, isn't weakness, and isn't bad luck, but a dark part of you, silently making every decision behind your back? Deep inside your mind exists an entire world you cannot see, a realm Carl Jung called the unconscious, and within it lives your shadow, the hidden part of you that remembers every wound you tried to forget, holds every emotion you refused to feel, and carries every truth you buried to survive. From childhood, you were taught what parts of you were acceptable and which ones would lead to rejection, punishment, or shame, so you locked away anything that threatened your place in the world. The anger you weren't allowed to express, the tears you weren't allowed to cry, the fears you were mocked for having, the jealousy you were scolded for showing, the pain no one cared about, the desires you were told to suppress. All of it didn't disappear. It simply fell into the shadows. Imagine your mind as a vast mansion. The rooms you show the world are spotless and bright. Your confidence, your kindness, your intelligence, your humor. But behind a locked door at the end of a long hallway is a room you never enter. A room filled with everything you once hid, because you thought no one would love you if they saw it. At first, you think ignoring that room gives you control. You think pretending those emotions don't exist means they can't hurt you. But the truth is far more terrifying. The part of you you never face becomes the part of you that controls everything. The shadow doesn't stay quiet just because you avoid it. It watches you, learns you, studies your patterns, remembers your wounds with perfect clarity, and then begins making decisions on your behalf. Decisions you don't even realize are not yours. Think about the last time you were triggered by something small, something insignificant, something that shouldn't have upset you. That was your shadow reacting before you did, pulling you back into emotions you never resolved. Think about the relationships you kept choosing that felt strangely familiar, even if they caused pain. That was your shadow guiding you toward what it recognized, not what you needed. Think about the opportunities you sabotaged, the dreams you postponed, the risks you avoided. Your shadow wasn't trying to hurt you. It was trying to protect you from repeating an old wound, even if it meant destroying your future. This is the terrifying paradox. The shadow works tirelessly, quietly, invisibly, making decisions for you long before your conscious mind wakes up to the moment. You think you're choosing your reactions, but your shadow reacts long before logic enters the room. You think your fears are rational, but they are shadows of memories that still bleed inside you. You think your desires are mysterious, but they are the echoes of childhood wounds still asking to be seen. And you think your pain is random, but it is the shadow pulling old scars into new experiences. So you will finally acknowledge them. Most people believe they are fully awake, fully conscious, fully aware of themselves. But that is the biggest illusion of all. Human beings are puppets to the parts of themselves they refuse to see. Every time you explode in anger, every time you shut down emotionally, every time you chase validation, every time you cling to someone who treats you poorly, every time you freeze even though you want to fight, every time you run when you want to stay, your shadow is making the choice for you. And the cruel twist? You don't even know it's happening. You blame the world, you blame the situation, you blame others. Sometimes you even blame yourself, but the truth is, none of these decisions are coming from your conscious mind. They come from the dark part of you that is desperate to be seen, but terrified of being touched. Your shadow holds the part of you that cried alone as a child, the part that felt invisible, the part that felt powerless, the part that felt unloved, the part that felt unimportant. It holds the anger no one allowed you to express, the tears you swallowed, the fears you couldn't voice, the shame you carried silently, the dreams you abandoned because someone told you they were unrealistic. And because these emotions were never processed, the shadow speaks for them, acts for them, chooses for them, silently, powerfully, relentlessly. The shadow doesn't communicate with words. It communicates with impulses, cravings, reactions, attractions, fears, and sudden emotional storms that make no sense in the moment. You think you're overreacting, but really you're reliving. You think you're afraid of the future, but you're actually terrified of the past repeating. You think you're choosing people freely, but you're magnetized to what feels familiar, because familiarity feels like safety, even when it hurts. You think you're failing because you're weak, but the truth is, you're being controlled by a wounded part of you that never healed. And this wounded part, the dark part of you, makes every decision silently, until the day you finally dare to face it. But here's the part people never expect. The shadow is not the villain. The shadow is the protector. Yes, it sabotages you, but only because it's protecting an old version of you that once needed saving. Yes, it chooses painful patterns, but only because pain is familiar and therefore predictable. Yes, it shuts you down, but only because staying open once caused you unbearable hurt. Your shadow doesn't hate you. It loves you so fiercely that it would rather hold you back than let you get hurt again. But that protection becomes a prison. You grow older, but your shadow stays the age you were when the wound was created. It keeps making choices from a time when you were powerless, even though today you're not. This is why adults crumble under childhood pain. This is why old wounds feel eternal. This is why your reactions feel bigger than the moment. The shadow is frozen in time, still trying to save a version of you that no longer exists. And the only way to free yourself is to turn toward it, not away from it. You must become the adult who finally opens the door to that locked room, walks inside, and meets the parts of yourself you abandoned. You must sit with the anger you suppressed, the fear you pretended you didn't feel, the jealousy you judged, the shame you hid, the sadness you minimized. Shadow work is not about fixing yourself. It's about listening to yourself. It's asking, what emotion have I ignored? What memory still hurts? What truth still scares me? What part of me still feels alone? When you listen, the shadow softens. When you acknowledge the pain, the shadow stops screaming. When you feel the emotions, the shadow stops acting out. When you integrate it, the shadow stops controlling your decisions. And that is when everything in your life begins to change. You become calmer because you no longer fight yourself. You become wiser because you understand your own motives. You choose better relationships because you're no longer choosing from wounds. You stop sabotaging good things because you don't fear the past repeating. You stop repeating cycles because you finally see where they come from. You stop running because you finally know what you've been running from. And the most beautiful truth is this: the dark part of you that once controlled everything silently becomes the part of you that empowers everything consciously. Your shadow becomes your intuition, your strength, your creativity, your emotional intelligence, your authenticity. It becomes the compass, guiding you toward the life you were meant to live instead of the life your wounds forced you into. The dark part of you has been making every decision silently, but now it's your turn to take the pen back. Now it's your turn to rewrite the story. Now it's your turn to open the door, step inside the forgotten room and say to your shadow, I see you now. You don't have to hide anymore. Because only when you see the part of you that controls everything can you finally control your own life.